Well, Mr. BJ, on my mind this week is the longest running movie franchises of all time.
Oh, okay.
You watch a lot of movies, BJ?
Sometimes it just really depends on what movie it really is. So, let me. I'm not. I know you probably have a list here, but I want to
Hmm.
guess a couple and see if I can just
Oh,
get a
well, of
few off.
course you were going to guess the list,
Oh, okay.
BJ.
All right.
I do have a list. Do you mind being given one because it's what inspired this list?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, the one that inspired this list is one. It's a movie that just came out recently. Do you happen to know what that is?
Is it the Fast and the Furious
Yes, it
franchise?
is. Yes, it is the 10th movie
Yeah.
in that franchise. And goodness, they've had a
And
lot of movies, BJ.
and they're not done. I know they've got
They're
at least
not.
one more, maybe even two more.
They're not done at all.
My
But
goodness.
there's at least 10 movies on this list that I've got here, and I want to see if we'll guess early, and if you're hitting them, we'll go with it. But if we're kind of off track, then I'll start giving you some. How's that sound?
Okay. All right. Well, I
Okay.
just thinking back on what you might consider a movie franchise.
Okay.
It comes to mind that there's been some, that might change actors, but the character still remains the same throughout the years, even if
That
different
counts.
actors have portrayed. So my first guess is going to be the James Bond movie franchise. Is that
Yes,
on the list?
indeed. That is the first one on the list, BJ, with the search
Okay.
currently on for a new Bond. It's important to recognize how long this action adventure series has been around.
Yeah.
Mr. 007, from the pages of the British novelist Ian Fleming, comes a film series that began back in 1962.
I was
With,
just about to say, isn't it about 60 years ago now that the first
yeah,
movie came out?
with Dr. Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig have all
Mhm.
portrayed stalwart, lethal Agent 007 in a franchise that dabbled in loose continuity until Craig's run as Bond gave us a reboot and a fully serialized Bond with a closed ending. There's 25 official movies in all, 27 if you count non-series. 1967's Casino Royale and 1983's Never Say Never Again,
Mhm.
and it is one of the longest running movie franchises of
Awesome.
all
All
time.
right. Well, that's a good first guess then, Drew.
Yes, indeed.
Now, so does this mean that is it longest running in terms of how many years it has gone by between releases, or is it longest as in how many movies have been released in the franchise itself?
Yes.
So both is what it sounds
Yes.
like. Okay. Well, then my second guess is going to be a movie franchise that started back in the late '70s. Started a couple of lesser known actors: Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and of course Harrison Ford. I'm talking about the Star Wars movie franchise. Is that on the list, Drew?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah, of course it's on the list. BJ, Star
Woo!
Wars is a galaxy unto itself, one of the largest multimedia properties in history. All starting with a monumental 1977 sci fi fantasy adventure film that instantly changed the viewers' lives. Three distinct trilogies over the course of 4 decades, plus some incredible animated series, brought different generations of fans into the fold. And it's only all gaining momentum. Ahsoka premieres this summer on Disney Plus, while The Horizon promises Skeleton Crew, The Alkalite, Andor season 2, and multiple films. As the original shared as the original shared movie universe pre-Marvel Studios, Star Wars is one of the longest serialized stories to go without a reboot.
Awesome. I was just about to say, I'm not, I figured that that was also part of it because it's another one. But before we move on to the next guess, the original trilogy is the best. Change my mind.
Ooh.
No need for any of the others. Just watch the original three.
Hey, no arguments here,
Okay.
beach.
Next guess is I think you may have mentioned it, but it was going to be my next guess anyway because of how many movies they have released, even if it's been in just a short 10 to 15 year span. That's a Marvel Cinematic Universe, Drew. Does that
Mm.
make the list?
Hmm. The MCU, you say?
The MCU, yes.
They were right under Star Wars. So yes, the
Yes.
MCU. Though
Awesome.
there were most certainly movies that made, or most certainly movies made about Marvel characters before 2008.
Yes.
Marvel Studios' Marvel Cinematic Universe, which began with Iron Man, is nothing short of a phenomenon. Time wise, it feels like a baby compared to some of the other franchises on this list, but the saga's
Hmm.
scope and sheer amount of output more than makes up for its smaller window of only 15 years.
Yeah.
We're a staggering 32 films in. Now, with
Yeah.
8 Disney Plus
Just.
streaming series to consider too, this doesn't even take into account the TV/streaming shows from the last decade that were once considered part of the MCU, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, etc.
Hmm.
Consider those as victims of Thanos' snap.
Just crazy. And there were some good TV shows too. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I finally got to watch Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania last weekend, so it was
Ooh,
pretty good. I hadn't had a chance to watch it, but it finally dropped on Disney Plus, and I finally had the time to try to sit down and watch it, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't exactly my favorite or anything like that, but I think it got a little bit of criticism unnecessarily outside of a few things that I mean, just were kind of eh. But
for time's sake, BJ, let's see if you can go 5 for 5, and then I'll give you the
okay,
rest. So, two
all
more
right.
guesses for you.
Two more guesses.
Two
Okay.
more guesses.
Well, I guess Marvel, and I was right.
Correct.
Is DC's universe on that same scope? Is that on the list as well?
Ooh.
The DCEU, by chance?
I'm afraid that you won't be going 5 for 5, my friend.
Oh
But you
man.
have a chance on the fifth question.
All right. Well, let's see. So I've gotten Star Wars Bond and
Star
the
Wars Bond in the
MCU.
MCU,
Okay.
yes.
Trying to
Can't
think
believe
of.
you haven't said this one.
It's probably going to make me go when
Uh huh. Oh, you're gonna smack yourself on the forehead if you don't get this one.
well, I think that I'm going to go with the movie that's going to come out here later on this month. It's the fifth installment, the Indiana Jones franchise. Drew, is
That is
that
not where I was going, but it is on the list.
okay? All right, I thought it
It is
was.
indeed.
All
I
right,
actually just went past it as I was scrolling around. It was actually right below the MCU.
okay.
Indiana Jones, including the upcoming Indiana Jones, as you mentioned, and the Dial of Destiny.
Dial Destiny. I've already
The
got my
Indiana
tickets. I'm going to go
the,
see it.
the Indiana Jones franchise stands at only 5 films, but over 40 years. But as the whip
Mhm.
cracking hero once said, it's not the years, it's the mileage.
Yeah,
Especially when you consider that Harrison Ford has been the only one playing Jones on the big screen this whole time, even
yeah,
at 80 years old. A couple
yeah.
actors have been cast as a younger Indiana River Phoenix for an extended flashback,
Hmm.
and Sean Patrick Flannery for the George Lucas produced 90s series, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. But any and all talk of actually rebooting everything with a new actor has been met with fan outrage.
Yeah, I can remember how much the fans outrage after Crystal Skull came out. So I mean I don't know when they kind of had Shia LaBeouf as maybe the next one to soft reboot, and that kind of got flack. So I don't think they're really going to do it. I think once this one's done, it's Indiana Jones is not going to be made anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine anybody else being Indiana Jones besides Harrison Ford. That's kind
Yeah.
of why on the solo movie uh, flopped, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
All
It
right,
is weird to
what did
say.
I forget? What am I missing, Drew?
All
What's
right.
the one that I'm gonna beat myself up over?
I'll let you know when we get to it, but let's
Okay,
run through the rest of these here. BJ,
let's do
Planet
it.
of the Apes.
Okay, I'm not a big fan, but I can understand why that's on the list.
It's been running since 1968.
Yeah.
I won't get into all of that so for the sake of running through these here.
Hmm.
Next up, BJ, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I guess that counts, but I mean, it's really I think of that more as for the TV show, I guess.
Over the past 100 years, the super sleuth has appeared in the screen over 250 times, not even counting stage and radio, making him the most portrayed literary human character in film and television history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
75 actors have played Sherlock Holmes, BJ.
That's pretty remarkable, Drew. That is pretty
75.
remarkable.
Next up, Batman.
Yeah, Batman makes sense.
Yeah.
Superman, it would be in that same token sphere, I'm guessing.
What began as a comic character created by Bill Finger with Bob Kane in 1939 sprawled out into the 1940s serials, a 60s TV series, a movie, a blockbuster multiplex run in the late 80s and a 90s animation too, and so on. We live in a Batman world from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy to an entire Fox TV series about the city Batman lives in, Gotham.
I still like Adam West's portrayal the best.
Dracula in the
Yeah,
Universal Monsters.
yeah, Dracula makes sense.
From 1931's Dracula, and before that, 1922's Silent Nof- Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. Yes.
Nosferatu. There you go, BJ. Our obsession with Bram Stoker's landmark 1897 novel is practically unrivaled pop culture wise. And add this to the Mummy, the Wolfman, Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster, and the Invisible Man, and more. It doesn't really matter what Universal's Dark Universe never
Yes.
made it past its first film.
Yeah. They're still trying to get that off the ground though. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but
Godzilla.
Godzilla makes sense, yeah.
The, the atomic age of the 1950s gifted us with the classic killer Kaiju Godzilla, a gargantuan prehistoric monster awakened by nuclear radiation in the 1954 self entitled film from Toho, which is still making Godzilla films to this day. With over 30 Japanese flicks and a handful of American entries, including the still going legendary MonsterVerse, which began with 2014's Godzilla, this is one of the most reliably enduring global franchises in movie history.
Does King Kong also crack the list if Godzilla's on the list?
Oh, you want to guess for a King Kong, huh, BJ? Well, I'd be ashamed to disappoint you that it does not make this list.
Wow. Interesting.
It does
Godzilla
not,
over King Kong. Interesting. Okay.
indeed.
Keep going.
Next up on this list, BJ, is where I'm disappointed. Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yes.
Harry Potter.
You know, I think I blocked out Harry Potter because when I was a kid, bullies would say, "You look like Harry Potter."
Oh,
I didn't have the
gotcha.
scar, but I had similar looking glasses. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
childhood trauma didn't allow me to enjoy Harry Potter like everybody else did, unfortunately.
Fair.
So, but yeah,
Sorry
definitely
about
makes
that.
sense. It's all right.
For-
It's all good.
Forget those nerds.
Hey, I was gonna say it's been like 20 years, and I think I'm doing far more better things than they are right now. But
Boom.
I don't know.
A new Harry Potter TV series based on author J.K. Rowling's books has just been greenlit for Max, formerly HBO Max,
Hmm.
formerly HBO, all those things.
HBO
Even
Go,
though the
HBO Now.
yeah, HBO now too. Even though the film series, which ran for a decade from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in 2001 to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 2011, which crazy thinks that's
Yeah,
that long ago, BJ,
yeah.
aren't all that far in our rear view and are still immensely popular. It's strange to say that this book series, which began back in 1997 and has already toppled the adaptation mountain, is about to take on its biggest challenge yet with a 10-season streaming series. But it's true.
I have been to platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. One of the coolest things that a Harry Potter fan could do. Now, obviously, I didn't say that I was, but I still have, people that wanted me to take pictures of it. So, but
Next,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
next up, BJ, Halloween.
Yeah,
Should be no
Halloween.
surprise at this point, as we've recently
Mm-hmm.
watched new movies of Halloween. Though Freddy Krueger is dormant and Jason Voorhees barely clings to life, afterlife, more so, I don't know.
Too
Mi-
much life.
Michael Myers remains as the most trusted name in slasher horror, having just completed a successful reboot trilogy, which was the second reboot timeline after Halloween H20 to bring back original star Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Halloween, complete with Michael's trademark mask from the catchy, chilling John Carpenter score, is a horror mainstay From 1978's devilishly influential first film to movies every decade since, including Rob Zombie's remakes, this sinister saga is one for the record books and you multiverse nerds. And
Awesome stuff.
next up, I'll go a little bit faster.
Okay.
Rocky Balboa
Yeah, the Rocky movies. That makes sense.
and
And
Adonis Creed.
yeah, they've all been with Sylvester Stallone, except I think the Creed ones. Maybe the first one had him in it, but
The first one did have him in it.
that's right. What's next?
Uh, Next up, BJ, you might be not surprised, but maybe surprised you didn't think of this one. But maybe you just weren't thinking this dark. But The Exorcist.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one. That's
Yeah,
surprising, but I mean, you're right. They do make it seems like too many of them at times.
still considered to be still considered by many to be the scariest film of all time, helping it become the only horror movie to get nominated for Best Picture. The 1973's The Exorcist offered up to two direct sequels: 1977's Forgettable Exorcist 2, the Heretic, excuse me, and 1990's Better Than You'd Expect, The Exorcist 3. The series then went dead for about as long as the break between 2 and 3, so that was about 13 years, returning with some big time prequel films in the aughts and direct sequel Fox series last decade.
Hmm.
Not as abundant as its offerings as some of the other franchises on the list, The Exorcist is back in business once more thanks to Halloween reboot trilogies David Gordon Green and Blumhouse.
Hmm.
Slated for this year on October 13th, The Exorcist Believer kicks off
Interesting.
Green's latest horror reboot trilogy.
Interesting.
I said I was going to go fast and I read the whole thing.
Hmm.
Uh, Next up, after we skip some of the ones that you mentioned, BJ, Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It
Can't believe I didn't think of that one.
dates all the way back to 1996.
Tom Cruise has been on in all of them as well. And there was a long gap between I think the first three and then the most recent three
And if you
that
take
they
into
did.
account the TV series, it began in 1966 and ran
Yeah,
for 7 seasons.
yeah, yeah. That's where the inspiration came from for the Cruise movies.
And next up, BJ, you may or may not hit yourself for this one. Depends on if you like this show or not. Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm not as into Star Trek as some, but
Me either.
I can appreciate it that they've been around for a long time as well.
Mm-hmm. And next up, Child's Play.
Oh yeah, Chucky,
Mm-hmm.
and that also had Mark Hamill in it, if I'm not mistaken, as the voice of Chucky.
It's stuck around for over 35 years.
That's crazy. That is
The
just
voice of
crazy.
Chucky is Brad Dourif.
Well, there's I think the most recent ones maybe, or maybe there was something animated. Mark Hamill has done the voice of Chucky recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe he's in the newer stuff.
Maybe,
Of course,
maybe.
Fast and Furious. And here's another one.
Hmm.
It's you think makes sense once I say this, BJ. The Saw series.
Yeah, yeah.
So many of those movies. Some of them not
Too
very good at
many,
all.
too
Yeah,
many, yeah, too
yeah,
many,
too many,
too many,
too
man.
many. Some of them were like really good and like, oh my goodness, this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The other one's like, all right, what are we doing here?
So you've got to saw off your own hand to get the key to unlock yourself from the cage or whatever. Like remove the bear trap that's attached to your face or so. I
And
don't
like you're
know that.
hanging upside down by your toes in a freezer and stuff.
Yeah, that just it just gets a little
Crazy.
ridiculous to me, but
And next up, the aforementioned Jason Voorhees, Friday the
mm,
13th.
yeah. There's way too many of these horror franchises. Did you notice that? Like
Yeah.
compared to some of the other genres, there's it's I guess it's far easier to make like horror movies because it's like you make one good one and then that creates like three or four bad ones because they're so cheap and easy to make that they don't necessarily have to be good because people are going to go and see them anyway.
And that is the last one. I was trying to check the comments to see if anybody had any nominations from the comments in this
I
thing
think that
on
list was
on
pretty
the website
expansive.
here that I'm taking a look at. But yeah, there you go. Those are all the longest running movie franchises in TV or in history. Not TV
Yeah,
history, but
that
the
was a
longest
pretty
running movie.
expansive list.